In another breach of convention, the Queensland Premier appointed Albert Patrick Field, a non-Labor nominee, to fill a Senate vacancy created by the death of a Labor senator. That gave the opposition the absolute majority needed to defer budget bills.
Take supply, for instance.
I'd refuse it.
Whitlam had two options, to call an election or tough it out. He decided to tough it out.
This government was elected for 3 years. The 3 years is not up.
It became a test of nerve and a war of words.
This government has had more than a fair go.
As the impasse continued, the attitude of the Governor-General became a matter of increasing interest and importance. The opposition put pressure on Sir John Kerr through a legal opinion issued as a press statement by the Shadow Attorney-General and former Solicitor-General Bob Ellicott.
Basically, it affirmed that a government can't govern without supply from the Parliament, that the House of Representatives and the Senate had equal powers to reject supply or to pass supply, and that the Governor-General had a reserve power to dismiss a Prime Minister in obviously very extreme circumstances.
But Whitlam conceded no independent role for the Governor-General. He took the view and expressed it publicly that Kerr had to take the government's advice, in effect, to do as he was told. Clifton Pugh, working on the Governor-General's portrait, was present when one such Whitlam comment on television was reported to Kerr.
And with that, Kerr got absolutely just sort of like filling a glass of claret, you know, just the red went up his face. And I realised then that if Kerr had any love for Whitlam, it's not there anymore. That was the end of that.
At a meeting with Bill Hayden, arranged during a vice-regal function for Princess Margaret, Kerr dropped the only clue he was to give the government about his intentions.
And he said something like this to me. But you know, Gough fights like a magnificent lion with his back to the wall. He could easily come back at the next election if he were to go out now and win. And I hot-footed it back to Parliament House and I said to Gough, look, I'm telling you, my policeman's instincts tell me that guy's going to sack you or sack us. And I remember Gough standing outside his office because he had Freddie Dale and the electoral officers in there, he's covering all contingencies. Drew himself up to his full height and swelled out and went red in the face at the thought of such insubordination by a common vassal like the Governor-General, and said to me, no, comrade, he wouldn't have the guts to do it.
Had Sir John Kerr indicated to Whitlam, and at an earlier stage, quite clearly that he would, in certain events, sack him, had that fact become known to certain members of the Labor government of the day, that the story may have been different.
In what way?
I believe they may have convinced Whitlam that he ought to go to the people.
Remembrance Day at 9 a.m, Whitlam invited Fraser, Lynch and Anthony to his office. Deputy Prime Minister Frank Crean and Fred Daly, leader of the House of Representatives, were also there. Whitlam had decided it was time to end the deadlock. If they didn't agree to pass the budget, he told the coalition leaders, he would advise the Governor-General to hold a half-Senate election. Fraser and his lieutenants were not interested. The Prime Minister set off for Government House at 12:55, when the House of Representatives, debating a censure motion on the supply crisis, adjourned for lunch. He was unaware that the opposition leader had left before him, bound for the same destination. Whitlam took with him to Government House written advice that there should be a half-Senate election on December the 13th. He'd already told Kerr on the phone that's what he'd be recommending, and had received no indication that the Governor-General had any problem with it. As he alighted at the private entrance of Government House, traditionally used by Prime Ministers, and walked the 30 paces to the Governor-General's study, Whitlam had absolutely no idea that he was heading into an ambush. Kerr was sitting at the desk when Whitlam was ushered in. They shook hands. The Prime Minister sat facing the Governor-General. Kerr asked immediately, "Are you prepared to recommend a general election?" Taken by surprise, Whitlam replied, "No." "In that case," said Kerr, handing a letter across the desk, "I have no alternative but to dismiss you." The Governor-General rose and held out his hand. The dazed ex-Prime Minister shook it and left. As he drove away, Malcolm Fraser was being sworn in as caretaker Prime Minister. If Sir John Kerr had waited just a day or two, it's said, Whitlam would have won, because several Liberal senators were on the point of crossing the floor and passing the supply bills. Perhaps. But once Whitlam decided to advise the Governor-General on November the 11th to call a half-Senate election, he took the matter of timing out of Sir John's hands. It was the final, fatal miscalculation.
Men and women of Australia, the whole future of Australian democracy is in your hands. The decision you make on the 13th of
Laurie Oakes reported our cover story this Sunday. The producer, Peter Hanrahan.